today we have gathered here to commemorate the 6th December, which is the death anniversary of Baba Saheb Ambedkar. And not only uh, it's a beginning of a new journey and of for justice, equality, liberty, and fraternity. So we will be looking at the feature film Jai Bhim, which is a film where there is a strife for justice and equality, and so here we have Professor Ramesh Kamble, who is ex-professor. What will you just let us know what you think about the film overall and also the opening scene?
Well, first of all, I join you in saluting the great life of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who has now become a global international icon of a democratic struggle. He symbolizes these two basic values, freedom and equality, as the two basic central values that should govern human life. So he has now become, in this sense, an icon of democratic society. As you have already touched upon the basic theme of the film, it speaks about brutalities that the most vulnerable, the most deprived, and the most exploited sections of society has to undergo. The film is not only about the brutalities that they undergo, it also speaks about the resolve, the struggle, and the resolute struggle for justice that most oppressed in their everyday life shows. So therefore, I find it is very, not only pertinent, but very, very timely to discuss such a cultural artifact, that is, this particular film. So I think both the film, the experience that the film depicts, and the contribution it makes to the quest for justice is something that needs to be discussed, that needs to be underlined, that needs to be evoked again and again. The reason is injustice continues to mark the lives of majority of people on the margins. Their voices, their struggles have to be brought to fore. Therefore, I think our discussion would be very important. Isn't it?
Yes. So what will you talk about the way the characters have been portrayed? Different, you have the character of the lead actor, how he is shown justice, the Chandra, how he has been depicted. What about the person who plays the scheduled tribe, the two couple which are fighting for justice, and what will you say about their occupation and their strata which they live in? They have to they have to live on like hunter-gatherers. They have
Exactly.
to
Yes.
live on hunting rats and mice.
exactly.
So, uh, do you think, is it uh, is it the reality, or is it just depicted in that film?
It, in a way, it is a comment on the social conditions in which they live. For us, we might find that look here, they are still at the such a stage of development that they have to live on hunting. But I assume perhaps, I mean, that must have been their cultural practice. Uh, and hence, while they also have to see fruits of development, they also have to, they also have right over fruits of development, which in a way is also at their, which is also their contribution. I think that this section of people have to live on such bare minimum source of livelihood also speaks about inability or a kind of the lack of access that they have to food, and that they too have changed. The very fact that they speak 2 or 3 languages means they have come in contact with many other people, or many other people have come in their contact. The very fact that they now have different kinds of occupations essentially means that there is no one particular occupation that they live on, okay? Or they are laborers, they are workers in the industrial plants, and they are drivers of vehicles now. They are in other kind of estate and such kind of occupations. Essentially means that they are not historically locked communities, but for large number of people, their lives are in a way decided by their habitat. It is the habitat which in a way influences the way they live. Okay. Uh, of course, I mean, there is another important issue here. That issue is that they have rights over forest. They have rights over the first of all, they have right over their livelihood. They have right to livelihood. Now, right to livelihood would also mean they have right to traditional sources of livelihood, which means, I mean, they have right to forest, they have right to resources that come from that forest, they have right to the water, the natural resources, as well as they have also right to the culture that is shaped by that ecology. So the ecology is not only source of livelihood, it is also source of, it is not only source of the livelihood and survival, but it is also source of culture, religion and identity. So their culture and livelihood both come from the natural habitat which they live on. Here I am not saying that they should be living only on that natural habitat. It is their choice to live and their right over the forest where they have been living. The film, of course, is, I mean, though talks about this specific details about the life, it basically speaks about kind of brutalities the most vulnerable and the marginalized faces from the so-called civilized society. So civilized society, whenever they come in contact with the so-called developed society always either looks down upon them as if they are uneducated, uncultured, undeveloped, and therefore they don't have claim to dignity or claim to respect. the way they are continuously treated by the non-tribal population is always in the way that the non-tribal population always looks down upon them, thinking that they are least developed or they are living subhuman existence. Of non-tribal people actually negatively shapes their life. Why? Because those whom they come in contact, or these people, those who come to occupy the forest for quote unquote developmental purposes, have already decided to look down upon them, struggle to assert for their dignity and their right. Even when the men are so very badly brutalized to the extent that they disappear from the custody of those who are supposed to take care of them. Okay. That indeed we feel what kind of injustice and brutality they have to face. But the struggle here is not only to bring the culprits to justice, the struggle here to say, look, we have claim over respect and dignity. We have to be respected and treated with dignity. That is at the core of that film. Another core, or another central theme that you see in this film is, while largely the sections, those who assume that they are developed, sections, those who assume that the quote unquote development that they have experienced has to be the model that these people too have to, in a way, reproduce in their lives. Only then their claim to dignity and their claim to justice and identity would become legitimate. I think, in a way, there is also learning of some members of that community, because the protagonist here, there are basically many protagonists in the film. It is not only the lawyer who is protagonist. It is not only the, it is not only the social worker who in a way helps the oppressed tribal people to secure their rights, or to secure and claim the fruits of development. It is not only the police officer who apparently think that, well, yes, such brutalities are part of life initially, but then realizes no, they have rightful claim to dignity. That claim has to be respected. They cannot disappear like this. That is what even he also basically comes to realize, that not only we have rights to autonomous individual personality, they do have. And that needs to be respected.